What's going on, guys? Evan the Dark Souls enthusiast for another Dark Souls gameplay commentary. Get settled in for a long one because this is going to be my introduction on how to quickly gear your character and get a variety of high-end armors, weapons, and pieces of equipment that in many ways prepare you almost for in-game status on Dark Souls. To give you a quick highlight of what this video will feature, this video will show you how to get some of the more preferred pieces of in-game equipment, early game equipment by the first 2-hour mark into the game. So through this video, if you follow its instructions, the video walkthrough that is, you'll be well positioned to take out most of the early bosses with added benefit, have some great in-game items that you can start upgrading right away due to their usefulness, and it will actually show you how to do it with, low-end weapons, no upgraded pyro glove, nothing like that. This is going to be with base starting equipment, starting with the illustrious and well-known Drake Sword, going all the way through picking up other alternatives to the Drake Sword, and eventually ending with a bunch of Titanite chunks, Titanite chunks, some levels, an upgraded flask, all sorts of little bells and whistles that you want to have on your character early game. I don't use the bottomless box glitch, however I do create a lot of characters, as is evident on this channel and the amount of time I've spent playing Dark Souls, so I needed to find what I consider to be the optimal route to get early game experience and early game gear, because doing this slow grind through the game is kind of rewarding for the first experience, but after a while you kind of want to start expediting the process. This is by no means the quickest method. The quickest method for early game character creation is probably, it's not a glitch of course, is probably to run straight into the forest, just save all your starting souls, open the forest, and then farm the soldiers in the forest, farm the Forest Covenant Guardians there, which has been put on YouTube about 1,000,000 times, so you can of course search that. I don't have a video specifically for that on YouTube due to the fact that it was already uploaded 9 or 10 times by the time I started commentating Dark Souls, so just a little context there. And while we get through this introductory phase of the commentary, I want to let everyone know that the Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition uploads are going to continue, but I don't think I'm going to make them a complete Let's Play, because it slows me down substantially to make Let's Play videos, and I'd rather just get through all the Dark Souls Prepare to Die content on PC so I can get to some PvP and stuff like that on the channel before it releases to DLC on consoles, because once it gets on consoles, everybody can kind of experience it for themselves, so I wanted to give everyone sort of an early taste, if possible. I know all the new areas have already been uploaded to YouTube and streamed and things like that, but that doesn't mean I want to sort of get my cut of the pie, so I think this video will bring something valuable to the channel, because I have plenty of just Let's Play videos. I don't have, just some tricks and tips I use, at least none that I narrate, so that will be the purpose of this video. So if you're interested in seeing how I gear my characters early game, or you just want to hear the sound of my voice, hey, stick around, because it's going to be probably another hour in this commentary. This is by no means a flawless gameplay, by the way. Usually when I do these quick gearing runs, I probably die. Average of twice, maximum of 4 times, I'd say. So, just some contextual clues. While I'm on the subject, I'd like to thank everyone for welcoming back to the Dark Souls commentaries. I had taken a break before the Prepare to Die edition came out, and I had ordered my copy from the United Kingdom because I wanted a physical copy as opposed to a Steam copy, and I couldn't find one stateside, so I had to ship it from the United Kingdom, which is a place I've always wanted to visit. I hope one day I get to see the United Kingdom. But either way, my first video got a lot of response. My Dota 2 videos, and those don't get the following that this game does, and that's absolutely fine. But it was just great for all the kind words, welcoming and things like that. So it's good to be back, guys, and those of you that are holdovers from old Dark Souls videos, glad to have you, and those of you that are finding this channel new, hey, that's fantastic too. There will be more PvP coming. I know I say that in almost all my videos, but there's a lot of PvP commentary going up on Dark Souls these days. Well, not a whole lot of commentary, just a whole lot of Dark Souls PvP, and sometimes I think that videos like this bring something special to the channel, something that you can't find in other places, which is, a good walkthrough of the single player that isn't a speed run. It's not trying to be like a gimmick run. There's nothing wrong with a speed run. I think the speed runs of Dark Souls are actually incredibly impressive. But the purpose of these runs is just sort of to show how a competent Dark Souls player gets to the game. I'm going to toot my own horn and say I'm pretty competent with Dark Souls. I don't think I'm an expert by any means, but I know how to play this game pretty well. For a game renowned for its difficulty, I don't struggle very much with it. I usually go through the game with, maximum of 5 game overs, most of which are just due to overconfidence. But in any case, we're going to go get the Drake Sword now. For those of you that don't know, the easiest way to get the Drake Sword is to buy the short bow from the Undead Merchant at the start of the game, along with enough wooden arrows. I think 100 would be a safe number. I usually buy 999 because throughout the game, if you struggle in certain areas, i.e. Blighttown, or some of the come-to-Jesus kind of moments in the game where there's just challenging enemies and things like that, at least for that level of gear you probably possess, I think that having access to a bow so you can pull one enemy at a time. Normally enemies aren't clustered so much as they're staggered, but when you engage one, the enemies nearby obviously also get engaged. So a bow is a nice safe way to draw enemies towards you. Sort of just pull enemies towards you. I don't recommend just using the bow for battle. I mean, it absolutely works, but definitely not the easiest way to play through the game. That's what you're thinking. So, in any case, level your dexterity to 12, and then at that point, for new players, you're going to want to pump strength and dexterity probably to the point you can use the Drake Sword. I like doing 16 strength minimum on almost all characters for the White Knight Shield and some other odds ends. So, before you bring down this merchant here is going to die once you're done with him, but before you kill him, you should buy the bottomless item box, the key he has for sale, and a heater shield. Believe it or not, a heater shield is actually an in-game shield. The heater shield is of high enough quality that you could use on an in-game character because it's very light, has kind of crappy stability, but it has stability, and it has 100% physical block. But more importantly, it has a very fast parrying speed, and sometimes parrying speed is one of the most important attributes. So, he's also good to buy Estus talismans and things like that. He's actually a pretty decent merchant to keep alive, but we need to kill him for some early game gear, so he's not a big deal. Base pyromancy is great against him. If you don't have that, then it might be safer to get the Drake Sword before confronting him if you think he might get you. But he's not hard at all. Bringing him down nets you an early humanity, which is nothing special, but it also gives you access to an early game katana, which is pretty nifty if you're a dex character. Transition out of Drake Sword into that katana is actually a very viable strategy, and that's what I do on most of my dex characters. So if I'm building decks, I'm going to have the dex to wield an Uchikatana, which I hope is pronounced correctly so people don't get on me about that. Hopefully you can get a hold of one of those, use the Drake Sword until you have enough stones and stuff to upgrade your katana, and then you can transition to the katana and everything will be great. Now, of course, this video will show you how to transition through most gear early game. The only thing unfortunate in this video is unfortunately in this video I don't cover how to transition out of the Drake Sword into a strength weapon, which I will talk a little bit about now, which I will talk about right now, because it's going to take me a couple minutes here to shoot off the Drake's tail here to get the Drake Sword. The reason I left it in is just so people can see how acquiring this sword goes, and it'll show you my method for doing it other than just shoot the tail with arrows. I actually expedite the process here by pumping an extra arrow into him as he walks by. Actually cuts the time in about half, so pretty substantial really. So yeah, that's how I do it. Of course, once you get your first shot and you kind of line up where you need to be for each shot, it gets much quicker to get this tail off, and I think most players have done this 9 or 10 times, but for players who've never experienced the joy that is the OP Drake Sword early game, here is your option. And of course, before you have enough strength to wield it, if you're like me and you kind of skimp on early game strength and dexterity levels, it's just important to have enough dexterity to wield it, which, if you have enough dexterity to hold the bow, you should be good to go. So, the dexterity is never a challenge. Sometimes the strength is a challenge depending on your character build. So having this much strength is actually not a big deal, because you can just two-hand the Drake Sword, and I think the sword is much better two-handed than it is one-handed, and our next stop after the Drake Sword will be getting a Grass Crest shield, which is, of course, the illustrious stamina regeneration shield everybody wears on their back. So at that point, you can two-hand pretty much all weapons without having to worry about blocking, and most of the one-handed attack animations are actually significantly worse than the two-handed, at least in my opinion. While I'm on that subject, I wanted to say that I think the Grass Crest shield is arguably the best shield in the game. If you're not, I mean, it's definitely the best shield if you're just going to wear it on your back, but considering that most strength builds are going to wind up two-handed anyway, because the two-handed movesets, in my opinion, are often better than the one-handed movesets, and you can get away with less strength. It's great if you want to use strength weapons, which I've actually decided my Prepare to Die edition character is actually going to be a strength character because I've never really commentated over a strength character before, and I've been told that the new arena system is not favorable for strength characters, so kind of want to take on the challenge and give it a shot. It sounds fun. So, strength character incoming, spoiler alert, and while I work on it, you guys can see my transition through gear and things like that. This video will at least verbally tell you how to transition away from the Drake's Sword, which I know I alluded to earlier and kind of got off topic, so I'll tell you right now. Believe it or not, one of the best strength weapons in the game, I mean, people sort of know about the Man-Eater Greatsword is very popular, which you of course get off the Lizards in Sin's Fortress, but you can't really get to Sin's Fortress early. I mean, the Drake's Sword will take you to Sin's Fortress, but by that point you'd also get access to a Lightning Spear, which most players stick with until they make their own lightning weapon in Londo. So, what I like to do is I go to a Blight Town and I get Great Club and the Large Club, and then I play with both and decide which moveset I want to use that playthrough. But surprisingly, the Great Sword and the Large Club and the Great Large Club are actually both very viable PvP weapons, and I would argue that the Great Club might actually be the best strength-based PvP weapon. But that's debatable because it all comes down to preference. So throughout this character's playthrough, the parts that I actually show on YouTube, I will usually show when I upgrade pieces of gear and stuff like that. But to give everyone a quick rundown of what we're going to see in this commentary at its end, since I have time here while I'm shooting off this tail, we are going to see... Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, this whole early game build is sort of contingent that you... excuse me. Pardon me. In other words, you have to have Havel's Ring to wear early game gear, and in fact, now that the Darkwood Grain Ring has actually been nerfed, you pretty much will be using Havel's Ring if you want to have full run speed and roll speed with most gear. And I think that's really important because playing through the game takes a lot longer if you have a slower run because of equipment load and stuff like that. So better just to keep your equip low and just not rock the heavy armor until PvP. At least that's my take on the game. I think rolling is more useful than armor, particularly for PvE. For PvP, I think it's debatable. Probably rolling would be better, but there's less poise tanks in the game now. For those of you that don't know, a little historical context, the Darkwood Grain Ring actually allowed you to get the Ninja Flip with only 50% equip weight as opposed to the normal 25% for fast roll. So it pretty much just made your character essentially OP because you could easily get a 53 to, 72-ish poise breakpoints while still wearing heavy weapons. So you're like a character that was fully mobile, fully armored, and had a huge weapon. It just didn't really fit within the context of the game, so I'm glad they finally nerfed it. I'm kind of surprised it took them this long to nerf it, only because it seemed to break the spirit of the game in a lot of ways, of letting your character do everything ever at, low levels, under the soul level 80 range, under the soul level 50 range, really, if you statted correctly. So, pretty excited to see that get fixed. The new Darkwood Grain Ring will not have the legacy and power of the old Darkwood Grain Ring, which, is largely good, I think. But, now that I've sort of alluded to the fact that by the start of this video, I assume most players have enough souls to buy a short bow, 99 arrows, a heater shield, so before starting this video, you probably want to have like 5,000 souls just so you can buy everything you need from the first Undead Merchant. That shouldn't be hard to have. You can always kill the Belfry Gargoyles. The order in which you do these things is not terribly important. Where it really gets interesting is after we take out the Belfry Gargoyles, which I think is the real trick of this video. Kind of everyone knows the Drake's Sword into early game Katana, and if you don't know it, not a whole lot to understand, and getting the Drake's Sword is a well-known exploit. But, that's not an exploit, but a well-known sort of trick of the trade, which I'm glad they put in the game. I've played through the starting areas with like the starting equipment like maces, like you saw me doing, and things like that, and Gargoyles are kind of challenging with your basic equipment, especially if you're trying to keep Brotear alive, but... So there's some context for you. So this whole guide sort of asserts that you're going to be wearing a Havel's Ring at least for a while, so that's just something to keep in mind. So roughly by level 30 to 35, you will be able to use the Drake's Sword, have 67 plus poise, have 20,000 souls left over to open the Force Gate. You'll have a Crest shield, you have a Wolf's Ring, which is part of the poise, you'll have access to a Katana, a Drake's Sword, and you'll be well positioned to go get yourself a Great Club if strength weapons are your thing. You'll have access to the large Ember and the very large Ember, or at least you'd be well positioned to get both. You won't actually have the large Ember through the course of this video, but you will be positioned to get the very large Ember, which is really the one that's harder to get early game because it's down to New Londo. So spoiler alert, this guy does take you down to New Londo early game, so get scared. You will have a ton of EXP fast. There is, not EXP, but souls rather. This is a great way to get early game souls, going down to New Londo early on. Just FYI to everybody. You will have access to a +2 flask before ever going down to Blighttown because you'll get the Firekeeper soul in New Londo. And of course there was one available to the church that everybody gets. You will have access to a faith weapon to massacre the skeletons down in the catacombs, although you'd have to invest significantly into faith, so most players won't find it that useful. But it'll be in the video anyway. So I would argue that this is the best starting route, and it doesn't depend on bottomless box glitch and things like that to get things done quick. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this. You'll also have access, of course, to the Knight Armor and the Elite Knight Armor. Knight Armor was, of course, acquired immediately after I defeated Havel in the first upload of the Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition. I'll put a link to that video in the description just so everyone can see how to get a hold of Havel's ring and stuff like that in case anyone doesn't know. But getting Havel's ring and getting Knight's Armor is pretty simple. And for those of you who don't know why I grab an early Knight's Armor, it actually has an extremely effective poise to defense ratio. And when it comes to pretty much Dark Souls, if you're going to wear armor, the most important thing to look at is the poise. The other resistances are, valuable too. Defense is always nice, but nothing is nearly as valuable as poise. Now, killing this guy early game can be a challenge for some people. The Drake's Sword makes the process much quicker, does more than enough damage to bring him down quickly. I recommend just rolling through the attacks. Now, of course, if you want to use a shield, say a Hollow Soldier shield, you can actually block these attacks relatively easily, but my shield doesn't have enough stability, and I don't really have enough endurance to block a full combo from him, from the Headless Titanite Demon here, so it's just easier to do it this way. When fighting these guys early game and they can get you, a couple things to watch out for is sometimes the jumping attack that he performs often causes interesting camera issues which get you hit, but also they do a tremendous amount of damage depending on how it works. I've had him sometimes jam the spear into me when he jumps and do over 1.2k damage just by sort of dragging it down into my body. I don't know. It's like a hyper combo from a fighting game or something, so that's just something to be aware of. Also, if you don't have enough poise, he can hit stun you through several hits, so don't be afraid to weapon toggle to get out of hit stun. If you don't know what that is, go PvP some Dark Souls and you'll know all about it. Also, his tail does a small amount of damage to you, but it can stagger you and leave you open to hits from other attacks, like that. Kind of messes up your offense. Thankfully, this demon is very close to a bonfire, so as long as you're not in human form, you really don't have anything to gamble. So dying to him a couple times, not a big deal. Just remain confident and go get your bloodstain over and over. Plus, it's good practice. These guys are actually good practice for timing rolls and stuff, which is a very important skill for pretty much all facets of Dark Souls. The invincibility frames on rolls are very important in the Souls series, and it's part of what makes it an action RPG so exciting. So finally, this guy's going to go down in this last combo here. I don't recommend the R2 Drake's Sword Energy Wave because it's not that effective against him. You're basically just wearing out your weapon's durability for nothing. Plus, the early game Demon Titanite might be useful, it might not be, depending on the weapon you're ultimately using. Of course, if it's upgraded by Demon Titanite, it's pretty nifty. So this is the direction to the Moonlight Butterfly, which most of you already know through Darkroot Garden. And Darkroot Garden is actually filled with a ton of really valuable items, which have actually become even more valuable following the release of the Prepare to Die edition. This is also how you would get an early game Hornet's Ring if you were interested in that for early game Troll PvP or something like that with a Fire Estoc. That's something I can elaborate on. Some players early game, they don't bottomless box glitch because they're not about that, but what they do is they come into the forest, open the gate, and they run to Sif's arena. They usually don't even fight Sif, they just grab the Hornet's Ring, at which point they retreat out of the forest without ever challenging Sif. They go down to New Londo and grab an Estoc pretty much effortlessly. They fight their way through the catacombs early game, which is a bit of a trick due to the respawning skeletons. But regardless, or they'll kill the Moonlight Butterflies, then get access to divine weapons. Either way, they develop a methodology to get through the catacombs. They get an Estoc, they go farm green Titanite shards, and eventually, when it's all said and done, they farm up to a +9 fire Estoc because they can get the Embers relatively easy from the Demon Runes. Now, unfortunately, you can't actually get the Chaos Ember early game due to the fact you have to have the Lord Vessel in order to drain the lot. Well, no, I take it back, yes. Actually, that's exactly what they do. I misspoke, I'm sorry. They actually do get the Chaos Ember and make a +5 Chaos weapon early game. There's a couple of videos on YouTube of people doing it, although they're not as viewed and easy to find as others. I'll probably upload a video of it eventually too, because I'm trying to do sort of a Dark Souls quick tips and tricks video, so some things to look forward to. Maybe that'll be the next thing I upload, is how to get a quick Estoc and troll people in PvP. Although that's not nearly as effective because the Hornet's Ring, from what I hear, has been severely nerfed in effectiveness, which is great, in my opinion, makes things so much more fair. So you'll see me come into this back in the secret area. Up ahead will be the Wolf's Ring. Acquiring the Wolf's Ring early game is fantastic. One, because now that the Darkwood Grain Ring has been nerfed, it's much harder to hit poise break points with armor, at least when using the heaviest of weapons. So the legendary Poise Ring, the Wolf's Ring, might actually wind up getting more play than it used to. It used to kind of be like a gimmicky item that no one ever wore, or if they did wear it, it was for a very, very specific build. Now I think it might be more common in general because Darkwood Grain Ring's been nerfed severely, and dare I say, Darkwood Grain Ring might only wind up being used on like the lightest and speediest of ninja type characters, which is probably what it should have only been used for originally. These Stone Golem guys are actually very easy early game, and they're not bad experience early game because they're low risk. Just keep your distance and be careful you don't get tree blocked. That's the easiest way to die to these guys, is get stuck behind trees so you can't roll through their attacks. Because their attacks are so slow, there's a huge window in which you can time your roll. You can actually even swing between their attacks. And eventually they'll start to cast Tranquil Walk of Peace. When that happens, just go all out wailing on them. Normally with the Drake Sword, you'll do enough damage that they'll die before they can complete the casting. But failing that, you can actually just back up with your shield up and hide. I, of course, don't have enough strength yet to use the shield and sword simultaneously, but there's really no need, because you won't be attacking when you're blocking, and you can just toggle over to two-handed whenever you actually want to attack instead of blocking. The stone, like I said, the stone golems fight so slowly they're not really a challenge, which, you know, of course makes life easier. Early game you can kill most slow attacking enemies just by good play. It's the quick attacking enemies that I struggle with before I have armor and gear and stuff like that. But coming back here is actually entirely optional. There's nothing back in this little area that's essential. But you can get some quick souls, and that's another advantage of this route that I take early game, is you get access to a lot of early game crackable souls, which create a large amount of souls. It creates a big surplus of souls early game so that you can open the gates to the Forest, which is nice. Then you can farm the Forest Covenant people if that's what you so desire, or you can just use it to get some early game stats and things like that. For me, by level 35 by a minimum, I like to have enough strength to wield the Drake's Sword and pretty much any shield in the game I would rationally use, and I like to have enough dex to use whatever I plan on transitioning to after the Drake's Sword. And I like to have enough endurance to wear at least pieces of the gear that I like. And considering hitting poise break points is really the only thing I worry about with armor. With the Wolf's Ring, it's not really a challenge, so early game, I used to always wear the Darkwood Grain Ring like everybody else, combined with pretty much a random ring with no consequence. I usually didn't use the Ring of Favor and Protection because you can't take it off without breaking it, of course. But sort of my new thing is just going to be Havel's Ring plus Wolf's Ring, I believe, because that will give me access to all sorts of early game goodness, poise break points, and I can't reiterate enough about how having enough poise makes playing through the Dark Souls single player much easier. Because the number one thing that kills most players, at least in my experience, other than the ultra cheap moments like the new Londo archers and things like that, spots that everyone tends to die at from time to time, are enemies that hit hard, stun lock you, and then you go down, or you just pull too many enemies at once. Either way, poise is the most important stat for surviving those encounters because you can run away. If you're not in hit stun, it's not that hard to escape. This is also where you get a Partisan early game, and for my money, Partisan is probably the best spear weapon for PvP. Next to the Dragon Slayer Spear, of course. But in terms of non-boss weapons, I think it is easily the best spear is the Partisan, so Enchanted upgraded Partisan. Not too bad in PvP. That's because the R2 swing has a big arc to it. The problem with spears is they're very predictable because they only attack, you know, straight pokes. But with that, you can do a sweeping motion, which is pretty nifty. I still think the Partisan's kind of a lousy weapon for PvP, but if you're going to use one, I would recommend the Partisan, which you'll see in this video. It's also a good early game poker weapon if that's your thing. You want to fight behind a shield. Until you get the Lightning Spear, that's probably what I would use, would be an upgraded Partisan or, an upgraded Wing Spear, which are both easy to get early game. Now, of course, the Wing Spear, everyone knows that. That's just in the graveyard by Firelink Shrine, so pretty sure everybody's accidentally acquired that early game if they've gone to the graveyard at all and tried to grind through those skeletons. This may not be the easiest way to get through the game. It's not a glitch. I mean, of course, you could just go rush a Pyromancy Flame, farm souls, upgrade Pyromancy Flame, and then just plow through all the bosses, which is how most players do their low-level soul runs, and that's fine if that's your thing. Sometimes I build characters that don't want to invest any points into attunement, though, so I can only carry, like, one Pyromancy spell, which is great for bosses, but this is just a good method. I think people will be very pleased with the results. I know that right now it might seem like this is pretty slow going, but it's not. You're actually grinding souls pretty efficiently here, and the best thing about the route I take is you don't lose any time doing this, or at least very little, because eventually everything I do in New Londo you would have to do anyway, so this just allows you to do New Londo in advance. So by the end of this video, the next time you go back to New Londo once you've acquired the Lord Vessel, you can just go straight to the Four Kings because you'll have already obtained like 90+% of all the drops in the area, and certainly all the drops in the area that are worth getting. You can also, if you want to troll, take these guys out, farm them for a little bit, and eventually they'll drop their sword, which if you can equip, you can use the Tranquil Walk of Peace Miracle off the two-handed ability. So once again, early game PvP troll builds, early game Estoc, Fire, Hornet's Ring combination with Stone Blade for Tranquil Walk of Peace. Most annoying way to play ever. In any case, you'll see me run around the light roll. That's how you find the Partisan. I think the Partisan are arguably one of the easiest items to miss in the early game, if not in the entire game, aside from some really rude ones like Darkwood Grain Ring is ridiculously hard to find by chance. So that's pretty much one of those things you look online to find about once you see somebody ninja flipping all over the place in YouTube videos or in PvP. At least that's how I discovered its existence. I was just watching videos and stuff when Dark Souls first came out, and I saw people ninja flipping all over the place with this heavy armor, and I'm like, dude, how are they doing that? Now, I used to think, much to my dismay, that in order to do ninja flips, it was all a matter of dexterity, because there's rumors before Dark Souls released that dexterity would, give you, like, faster rolls, and enough dexterity would give you the ninja flip, and strength would give you specific things as well, like a greater hit stagger, and there's all these like rumors like that, none of which turn out to be true. The stats don't give you any kind of like hidden character modifiers, but I do think it would have been a neat trick to differentiate between characters. Probably extremely difficult to balance in PvP, unless you could find a way to balance hit stun versus mobility, which is always a tricky game unto itself. So that's all the items in the forest, and thus far we have the Wolf's Ring, which is a poise ring, very powerful early game, and arguably powerful throughout the game. This will also give you access to Partisan and some other odds ends. Nothing too exciting. That was pretty much for the Wolf's Ring and just to hit everything while we're in the area. This next part will get you the Grass Crest Shield, which is definitely in-game quality gear, and if you're planning to two-hand weapons, then pretty much a must at any stage of the game, so pretty much here for that. You could also, if you didn't watch my first video series where I already acquired the Havel's Ring and the Knight's Armor, for those of you tuning in a little late through the video, you can actually also go this route to get Knight Armor, which early game is great for hitting those poise break points I keep talking about. Really, you only need to aim for 53, frankly. Early game, that's going to be enough to walk through most hits from most enemies, so one piece of armor combined with a Wolf's Ring will get you there. Will actually get you over that. You could wear mostly light armor. One thing that does make me kind of sad is I always thought Elite Knight Armor was one of the better looking armors of the game, but its stats just kind of suck. Its weight to poise isn't as great as just regular Knight Armor. And I think it's good that they didn't make Elite Knight Armor just strictly better than Knight Armor. I just kind of wish the art was better. But what can you do? Cosmetics are sort of secondary, particularly when you're a Phantom anyway, because it's hard to see all the details on these characters in Phantom form, which doesn't bother me. I kind of like the fact that Phantoms seem so enigmatic and sort of undetailed. It's because, you know, they're being summoned into another world. I don't know. I'm really into the lore of this game, and I kind of write my own explanations for things, you know. Everything Ego Xeno says is probably not canon, but I just like to think of it as, since, you know, they're otherworldly spirits from different time periods, you know, they just don't have that physical presence that you do. Or it could just be a practical gameplay perspective where it's easy to recognize a phantom from a regular player. And maybe reducing the character details reduces the processing rate on the game. I don't know. So, Black Knight, this one's easy. The Halberd Black Knights are really easy to fight because their attacks leave them open. Basically, if you don't know how to fight them, the trick is block a lot. That attack there is very damaging if it hits you, but not a huge deal. Now, of course, you'll see that poise working right there. That's an example of modern-day PvP right there, really. Whereas, you know, he hits me with a huge weapon, I just walk through it and walk behind him and backstab him. Sort of unfortunate that became... I'm not sure, maybe it's better now, but for a while that was basically Dark Souls PvP in a nutshell. Make sure you time your slashes with maximum distance because people are going to try to run right through the attack and backstab you. That's something, since I've got some time to kill between dead zones in the video, because we just acquired the Grass Crest Shield, so now that's just some downtime as we travel to New Londo and pick up some other odds and ends I don't want to forget. I want to talk a little about some of the PvP videos I've published. Most of my PvP videos are pretty dated now. I haven't put out a new PvP video in quite a while. And I noticed that I'm still getting like hater comments, and those don't bother me. The haters can say whatever they want. I stand by my laurels. I stand by what I've achieved in Dark Souls and the commentary I put out. I don't put out stuff I think is bad, at least very rarely. But I have to admit that I just get confused about what people say. It's like, it's an intellectual curiosity, honestly. The things that people say in their comments confuse me. I have heard every strategy is cheap in Dark Souls. Literally every strategy has been called cheap at one time or another. I mean, I've been told elemental weapons are cheap. Buffing your weapon is cheap. Using high hit stun weapons is cheap. Using instant kill magic is cheap. Using Wrath of Gods is cheap. Using Darkwood Grain Ring is cheap. Using armor is cheap. I don't know, I think people die to PvP to various people, and then they start raging, because this game can be rage-inducing, I know firsthand. Then people jump onto YouTube and just find PvP videos and dislike and troll and stuff like that, and that's no problem. Actually, it's kind of good to get some controversy on my videos. I like to see the people that aren't particularly pleased with the videos that I put out. I just wish that people would be more informed. I get scared when I see people say just uninformed things, like, okay, so I have a video on my channel of me taking out the Asylum Demon with like a straight sword hilt, and someone actually had the audacity to come on there and claim that I had some sort of hack for beating him. Like, some sort of hack as in the last hits went phased through me or something like that. I'm not even sure what he was asserting, but yeah, that's what I did. I jumped on here to cheat on my Asylum Demon fight. No. There's no real benefit to killing the Asylum Demon early game, so cheating to get it done is literally pointless. And the whole point of uploading it was to prove sort of my valor with early game rolling and just pecking away at enemies, so that's one of those like comments. It's like a trolling comment that just shocks you just due to how misinformed it is. It's one thing when people come to my videos and cite legitimate problems, legitimate mistakes, and I'm like, oh, that's a good point. But it's just stupid when people come on there and basically troll themselves and everyone else by lowering everyone's IQ by spreading misinformation and basically whining. All the PvP videos are filled with whiners. All the PvE videos are filled with people saying I take too long to get through the game. Once again, none of these hater comments bother me. I'm just kind of shocked at the misinformation that people are so convinced they're right. And this is, I use people as a general term for basically anyone that says something that's completely untrue but is completely certain that it is true. Just completely leads to mistakes. Like, normally when anyone points out to me that something I say in my videos is wrong, I go double check it online. If it turns out it actually is wrong, I try to do an annotation or a comment saying, oops, screwed that one up, sorry y'all. Oh, another quick thing, it's not in this video because I didn't want to do like a bunch of farming of Boulder Knights, but these guys actually drop the Boulder Slide Sword, which is actually a very viable dexterity weapon. In fact, many players consider an in-game buff weapon as Boulder Slide Sword due to the reach and excellent moveset. So, if that's something you're into, these are the knights you farm to get a Boulder Side Sword. In addition, you can farm these guys to get a rapier. The knights with the... Well, you can actually visually tell. The ones using the buckler have the rapiers, and the ones using the big shields have the Boulder Side Sword. But farming both is really effective. You'll see me save quit here. It's because I have my Homeward Bone up, because I know it's in human form, and I know people usually troll in the Undead Church. I've heard it's even easier to troll on PC, so I was watching my Homeward Bone. When it grayed out, I knew I was about to be invaded, so an old trick I've talked about in other videos is if you're playing in human form but you don't want to be invaded, switch to your Homeward Bone from time to time. When you see your Homeward Bone go gray, you can start quit out before the game locks you out of safe quitting. I'm not geared for PvP, and I was afraid I'd be invaded by someone with like an elemental weapon or some other kind of troll low-level build, and I just didn't want to waste a humanity for nothing. Plus, I only turned human in order to summon Bro Tear because I wanted to get a sunlight medal. Because I'll probably farm, at least 5 sunlight medals, and I'll shut up for the boss intro here, and I'll be back in a minute. As I'm back. So if you have a Drake sword, these guys are really like a no challenge. The important thing is just to remember to cut off his tail to get the Drake, or get the Gargoyle tail axe, which isn't really that great of a weapon, but it's got an amazing backstab damage modifier. So once again, if you're looking to troll people early game or just do like the one-shot PvP plan, then this is the way to go. The trick with this fight is keeping Bro Tear alive for that sunlight medal, because his AI is incredibly bad. You can't heal him with flasks like you can regular phantoms you summon. So if you didn't notice, like, he just stands in the fire wave, and I'm trying to get this gargoyle down. Of course, the other gargoyle will show up the minute the first gargoyle goes down. So Bro Tear is at a little under half health, but thankfully once you get the first one down, keeping Bro Tear alive is much easier, because when it lines up the fire to shoot at you or Bro Tear, you're basically just in a position to come and instant combo him. The Grass Crest Shield helps here too, because you can restore your stamina quickly for additional attacks. Normally you can get 2/3 if not all of the enemy's life in one swing, so that brings down the Bell Gargoyles, and this will be an easy way to open the Force too if you just wanted to basically take the quick way and skip all the early gear and you're just like, I just want to go to the Force on quick level. Basically just save all your souls from the early game. Bell Gargoyles are half the souls you need to open the Force gate, and the other 10,000 will usually come just by killing random enemies on your way to Gargoyles. So provided you don't die and lose a blood stain along the way, should be no problem. So now we're going to go up here and ring the bell, which will be the first time I've rang this bell on PC. Probably about the 100th time overall, because I play too much Dark Souls in my life. We're going to climb 9 ladders and ring the bell and stuff like that. You know, all in good fun. Next will be sort of in the meaty part of this video that I don't think a lot of people do, which is go to New Londo early. New Londo is a pretty scary area of the game. I'd say that Blighttown, New Londo, and Londo probably have killed me more than any area in the game. I'd say the boss that holds the record for killing me the most is Bed of Chaos, which was one of the worst designed boss battles ever, in my opinion. You know, it's too bad coming from Demon Souls, where they had the Dragon God or whatever, where you had to kill him through like puzzle solving. You know, that was a fun fight, and I actually thought it took a level of skill. With the Bed of Chaos, I feel it's like luck and positioning, which, you know, there's some skill in that, but not nearly as much as with Dragon God. It's harder than Dragon God just because it's way cheaper, but way less fun. At least that's my take on it. So one thing here with Oswald is, other than of course buying the Book of the Guilty so you can consult who's hacking the most, it's really important that you at least are aware that you can buy the Poison Resistance Ring, where if you're absolutely stuck in Blighttown, just poisoned all the time and raging, this is the solution. Come here, buy that, be done with it. That'll give you a huge amount of poison resistance to get through Blighttown, along with the Pyromancy Armor, of course, which, if you're stuck early game, Pyromancy is probably the easiest starting class, in my opinion. This gives you access to, you know, all sorts of early game help in Blighttown, you know, full Pyromancy Armor, the Tattered Cloth set, fantastic. And in addition to that, you've got that Poison Ring, so you can actually get through most of Blighttown without ever getting poisoned. Even if you do get poisoned, the poison damage you take is minuscule. So you see me experimenting with my endurance. I could do the math on this stuff, but normally I just kind of start putting stuff on. If I start slow rolling, then I'm like, Alright, need more endurance. I usually don't fine twine. Oh my gosh, I can't talk, guys. These long commentaries. My just English skills start to decline with each minute, I swear. But no, really. I don't start fine-tuning the numbers until probably I have at least 40 endurance, where I feel like putting the time in on the math is worth it. So now we take an elevator ride back down to Firelink Shrine. Normally when I'm stuck on elevators, I take some time to pop some souls, odds ends like that, which, you know, is pretty useful. Gets me, takes forever to pop souls, and I apologize for the background noise. I live in a college residence hall, as I've reiterated before, so sometimes the noise you hear in the background is just part of the college lifestyle, whether you're a graduate or undergraduate. And of course, here's this guy who I always want to kill every time I come by, but I need to keep him alive at least until I buy those miracles. This will not be a faith character at all, no faith whatsoever, but, you know, always hit this Firelink Shrine real quick, that way you have, you know, the tin flask, because this bonfire has already been reinforced once, being the base camp bonfire, so it's good to get those tin flasks, because New Londo's somewhat challenging area. Coming through here also gives you a chance to talk to Lotrick and grab yourself a sunlight medal. I just try to grab these wherever I can, because I don't like farming these sunlight maggots to get them. And sometimes this dialogue is interesting if you catch him at the right time, which I never seem to. Normally he just says, you know, all futures are murky, let's not get too friendly right now. And he, you know, he has interesting insights into the characters if you can talk to him at the right times. And I know it's triggered by specific events in the game, and you can, you know, you can catch all the dialogue appropriately, but, you know, I never do. It's not worth that much to me. I'm also, fair warning, I am experimenting with my microphone settings. I'm trying to get the grain as low as possible, that way you guys don't pick up so much of the background noise that's in my life. But at the same time, it makes it so I pretty much have to, like, dry hump the microphones so that you guys can hear it without my voice becoming distorted. So, it's a whole give and take relationship, and now we're in the terribly, terribly dangerous New Londo ruins, where there's more souls to be had and stuff like that. You'll see some items missing from this area. I was tinkering around in New Londo on another character once, just seeing if I could find anything different than Prepare to Die edition. Once again, I haven't looked up anything online intentionally, so I have no way of knowing what's been changed and what hasn't. I've seen comments on my videos and things like that that have given me a couple spoilers. No big deal, I don't mind if people post spoilers, but I'm still searching through the game for new content, stuff I might have missed, things like that. So sometimes I come into areas out of order on these videos, and since I decided not to make the Prepare to Die edition a complete Let's Play, you know, as a direct result, so, you know, just some things are out of order. So the point of coming down here is you can do this right from the start of the game if you have a Master Key, and if you don't know, Master Key is easily the best early game gift. Make sure you roll that first attack, because it'll probably one-shot you if you came here early game. I come down here to grab those souls mainly, but if you're making a Faith character, that Astora's Straight Sword isn't that bad of an early game Faith weapon, and if you have the requirements to wield it, it's actually really useful for getting down into the Catacombs early game, because it is a holy weapon, so Astora's Straight Sword has holy damage, thus it will kill the skeletons and they won't resurrect. So, pretty neat early game. It's one method other than killing the Moonlight Butterfly for the Ember. You can actually just acquire that, poke each skeleton once, and then kill them so they don't resurrect, and, you know, get down to those fire and chaos weapons early game, things like that. And I think in my next video I'll show everyone how to get a upgraded Estoc, because in this video you'll see where to get the Estoc, which is immediately on my right as I come in. That doorway behind me is actually where the Estoc is. You won't miss it if you're looking for it. I had already grabbed it prior to this video because I went and picked up an Estoc early game because I thought I might use one, but I decided I didn't want to go for like principally a backstab weapon. I backstab a lot with pretty much all my weapons because it's such a powerful thing, but I didn't want to just make it the primary emphasis of my weapon. So the easiest way to get through these ghosts is A, to have the Drake Sword so you can 2-shot them as opposed to 4 or 5-shot them. B, use those curses. They're useless in any other area of the game but here, unless they've added something new and Prepare to Die, so you might as well just burn through them. If you run out, you can buy more, so it's not like it's an ultra rare resource. There are some disadvantages to doing this plan, by the way. You will short yourself, nothing that you would miss, but you will short yourself 7 soft humanity, and you'll not have Engelward, I don't know how to pronounce his name, the the guy in the Crimson Armor set here, you'll see him later in the video, he won't be around to break curse for you, but there's plenty of purging stones in the game, and very few enemies successfully curse you anyway, so I never miss having him around. I always buy a resist curse from him, that way once he's dead I won't miss him. If you wait till later in the game, you can get like 4 humanity by beating him down, but with the Dark Hand, of course, the Dark Hand method of stealing free humanity from the people in Firelink because they're too stupid to understand you're stealing all their humanity. But soft humanity really isn't that valuable of a resource. It's great for leveling covenants and stuff like that, but it's not like you'll miss it too much, considering you can probably get a humanity a minute farming baby skeletons, which I should probably do another video of much later in this edition. I'm not anywhere near the point where I'll be doing that, nor do I need 99 humanity right now, but if you're not duping, there is a quick way to get humanity farmed up, and that's not PvP related, that I'll show in a later video, but you can find it on YouTube right now, which is basically just farming the baby skeletons. Oh, and some other advantages of coming to New Londo early is it actually does get you an early game Parrying Dagger, which is surprisingly useful because it weighs practically nothing. So if you want to wear say a heavier shield and have access to quick parrying speeds for what have you, and it's good price for PvP, you can come down to New Londo and do that. That's what I like to do. I like to use like an early game Hollow Soldier Shield and a Parrying Dagger. When I feel like I'm about to try to parry something, do like a setup parry, I'll switch to the Parrying Dagger real quick and be ready to go. So another advantage of coming down here. The biggest thing that sucks about coming to New Londo early is the ghosts are probably the most annoying enemy in the game. In the entire game, I would argue the ghosts are the most annoying enemy due to their ethereal status or whatever the game classifies it as, combined with the fact that New Londo is just full of pitfalls and drops, and Dark Souls isn't like a precision platformer kind of game, so I hate dying because I fall off of stuff. That's like my least favorite way to die. And I almost bit the big one right there running off that ledge. So if you can get the ghost to group up, that's a good idea. By this point, if you're going in the order I specified, you'll have enough poise with the Wolf's Ring to take hits from these dudes and not get staggered, so you can flask through their attacks in an emergency situation. You can beat them down, stuff like that. It's not a big deal as long as you have the Wolf's Ring. If you don't have the Wolf's Ring, every time these guys hit you, every 1 or 2 times, you'll actually probably stagger, and that's a big problem. You don't want to be staggered when you fight these guys. You need to be able to flask or get away quickly and basically not get yourself killed. So just a quick FYI on that. The Wolf's Ring makes this much easier. Also, I find that trying to fight these guys with a lot of finesse and minimize damage is pointless, because you have enough flasks from Firelink Shrine that you can just flask through their attacks and just grind it out. Plus, you are on a time limit because you only have so many transient curses, and you have to at least get to the vendor to buy more, because if you run out of transient curses, it delays this entire process. It becomes much harder and much slower to get all the items I advocate getting down here in New Londo. So just a quick FYI that, in my opinion, it's better just to beat people down and grind through here as quickly as possible than to try to carefully and slowly grind it out. Now, with that said, the enemies down here are not so dangerous that you need to like sprint at full speed to get through the area. I was actually pretty unlucky with my drops. Normally I wind up with tons and tons of those ethereal curses before I get out of here. This time I was just unfortunate and they weren't dropping very often. So normally you have way more transient curses at the end than you need, but I ran a little short due to a couple deaths. Spoiler alert, I'll die a couple times while attempting this, basically due to bad play. It's just no big deal. And of course, you don't want to miss the Cursed by Ring, guys. It's one of the most valuable, versatile items in the game. For those who don't get the joke, JK, it's actually a ring you'd probably never wear, ever, except for the Seath boss fight, and even then it's wholly unnecessary. Some other things, some other uploads to expect in the future. I will absolutely be doing some uploads of all the boss fights from Prepare to Die to see if there's been any changes. I'm already 99.999% sure there hasn't been, but aside from these quick little tip videos I'm doing, I'll also do all the boss fights just for nostalgia's sake, and I'll also I'll show some PvP from the PC, odds ends like that. But definitely not a complete Let's Play. We've got enough of those on the channel, and I haven't even finished my New Game Plus one on the PlayStation 3 yet. Or at least I haven't finished uploading it. So that'll be something else to do. I have to get all the trophies on PC. I feel like I would die an incomplete man if I hadn't acquired all of the trophies on all the editions of Dark Souls. So like PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. I need all the achievements from the new zones and the old zones. Let's get serious here. It does make me sad that some of the characters that have replayed through the game like 9 or 10 times in pursuit of items are, you know, now obsolete because I didn't grab extra stacks of the new magic spells and stuff like that. But hey, I guess you can't complain. You got new content. So I go ahead and buy an extra transient curse to make sure I don't run out. Turns out to be a good thing in the end. You might actually want to buy a couple more of those if you're struggling. Don't be cheap. You get plenty of souls for coming down here. And unfortunately, you have to kill this poor feller because he's got the key to the seal. And unless you have the Lord Vessel, he won't surrender it to you early. So he's just going to have to die so I can get a hold of it. Like I said, you lose some soft humanity by taking this approach. Not a huge loss at all. I would still definitely recommend doing this. Plus, it's fun to get a little early game NPC battling. He's not challenging at all. Just make sure you dodge the magic by smashing roll or blocking with your shield. The most important thing to ensure you don't get killed is when you hold the little dagger up, that's the Parrying Dagger. And when he goes into parrying stance, I think he has some sort of like 99.9% chance of parrying your attacks, regardless of the weapon you're using. Much better than a human player, so just don't attack when he's in that defensive guard. Depending on where your vitality, armor is, he might one-shot you with that. And that'll be unfortunate because then you have to run all the way back through here and use more transient curses and try not to blow your blood stain, things like that. Other advantages to coming down here is you can actually acquire a lot of other really good early game items I didn't take the time to do in the video because I knew I wouldn't be using them, but examples include the Darkwraiths down in New Londo actually do drop Dark Hand, and Dark Hand is a fantastic early game shield. It's a fantastic shield in general, but early game it comes in really handy for stealing humanity from enemies and things like that. Getting some quick humanity, or it has great elemental defenses, so against bosses that have a lot of elemental attacks, say Chaos Witches, things like that. And you know, in other words, the Dark Hand is a great thing to have early game, really at any stage of the game. So if you want to take the time to farm it, that's fine, but there really wasn't good context for me to slow down in the middle of my video, farm, you know, Darkwraiths for 30 minutes to get a Dark Hand and Titanite chunks, and it just would destroy the flow of the video, so that's not going to happen. The video was long enough without anything like that, but just FYI, down in New Londo, there are things you can farm that I do not farm in this video that, you know, players might want to consider farming. So killing the Darkwraiths is not only an excellent source of souls that's not too terribly challenging, you can farm Titanite chunks, Titanite slabs, and Dark Hand. All of which are worth having. I wouldn't try to find a Titanite slab because you can get other guaranteed sources of that in which you won't need to farm the Darkwraiths. But you can farm them if you want them. Farming chunks is great. Farm, you know, 5 or 6 chunks is usually a good idea because that will give you enough chunks that by the time you get to Londo, New Londo, or I'm sorry, by the time you get to Anor Londo, you will have enough chunks to fully upgrade a weapon to +5 lightning or, you know, whatever you need. Another quick item you get here is the compound bow, which if you're going to be a dedicated archer, this is probably the best bow in the game. So definitely worth grabbing that, and it's an easily missable item. I think on some of my New Londo playthroughs I've actually forgotten to grab it. No huge loss because by New Game Plus I essentially never ever use a bow. But it's there and you definitely want to grab it. You definitely don't want to skip it, particularly because it's a low risk acquisition for an item. Excuse me, I had to take a swig of my Mountain Dew. I've been talking and stumbling through my words for a while, getting kind of tired here in the throat, if you know what I'm saying. I just have to say awkward things like that, don't I? I just have to say things that sound so inappropriate. Sorry, guys, I'm getting tired in my throat. Hey, guys, look at my piano hands. Like, just look at this box of Kleenexes next to my computer. So many things in my videos that just make it look like I have strange, unsavory habits. None of which are true, I swear. I swear. Really, you can ask my girlfriend. She'll vouch for me. Or she'll just paint me to be a much worse person than I actually am. Her sense of humor isn't that far off my own. But anyway, getting back to the gameplay at hand, we're actually sort of approaching the point of... We're reaching the point of enlightenment here. We're about to be done in New Londo. My run was delayed, of course, because I unfortunately died a couple times due to clumsy playing, but that's okay. The first thing I recommend after draining the water is go and grab the Firekeeper Soul, because that's probably the most immediately useful thing down here, because having an upgraded flask just makes grinding through areas in this game so much easier. Flasks go further, your stack means more, and it brings you closer to that coveted +6, +7 flask towards the end of the game that you're hoping to acquire. Or I guess if you just want mass humanity early game, you can eat it for mass humanity, but if it's your first run through on a character, that's stupid. Always reinforce the flask over getting additional humanity until you can't reinforce your flask anymore. Then really the only point to the Firekeeper Souls is to pop them early game. So you're about to see a pretty big fail here. This will be my first death. Do not do. Up ahead is the Firekeeper Soul. Spoiler alert, we're about to be gangbanged by ghosts. Do not handle it the way I did. I mean, pretty much this was the worst thing I could possibly do because that attack does not cut through them. Now, I could have just slashed through, had plenty of life. Pretty much anything I could have done other than that would have worked. Now, this time I'm going to show you the optimal way to do it. And by the way, that wasn't a planned fail. That was totally accidental. Every now and again, I'll intentionally die to demonstrate how to not do it. That, unfortunately, was not one of those moments. That was Evan has some seriously bad moments in Dark Souls from time to time. Thankfully, my Bloodstain actually spawned in a very safe spot, so I can grab that without endangering myself too much. So the best thing to do is just stand right where you came in, just run right back outside. Now you won't fall off of stuff. The ghosts will group up here at this archway, and you can just double to triple slash through all of them. Easy Firekeeper Soul. No mess, no fuss. Just get that reinforced flask. Now it's kind of up to you where you want to go. You can go down into New Londo and farm the Darkwraiths like I advocate to get, Dark Hand, Titanite chunks, large Titanite Ember. It's actually just called large Ember. Very large Ember, odds ends like that, more souls. So I would just come down here, but you can just leave at this point. Pretty much the big reason we came down here was for the Firekeeper Soul. In addition, you can go reinforce the flask, then come back if you're struggling to get through the area. Having that reinforced flask actually makes a big difference on your way through. Also for this area, I absolutely recommend having a shield that can block physical attacks. Even if it's the crappy Night Shield, I think blocking physical attacks is almost a must to get through here, at least at a low risk, in a low risk manner. Don't like the Crest shield through here, things like that. And I want to reiterate, I know I already mentioned this in the video, but in this video, I will not specifically show players how to get access to the next strength weapon in your chain of weapons after the Drake Sword. I reiterate, Blighttown, which is clearly accessible through the early game gate I opened, and go and get a large or a great club. Most people never use them because they're clubs and they're barbaric and they don't look sleek like a big sword or an axe. People assume they're bad. I assure you they are not. They are actually very strong, and the requirements to use them to make them decent is not that high. Making one an elemental weapon is perfectly acceptable in Londo. I definitely think it's way better than the spear. Other good early game options include like Great Axe if you're comfortable getting it and stuff like that. And a lot of these items I'll cover in later video installments. I'm kind of trying to make a little small mini series out of this, gearing your character, transitioning your character through the game, things like that. Because I think what gets these players stuck is they either don't adequately prepare for certain boss battles or they just come under gear, things like that. In other words, with Dark Souls, if you come prepared, the enemies aren't a big deal. This game really isn't that challenging. In all honesty, beating Dark Souls is a game, I mean, there's a lot of skill to the rolling and the battling, but even beyond that, game knowledge will take you very, very far. If you just know where to find the right items, areas to avoid until you have the right items, good threat assessment, things like that. If you can just understand, good avenues and pathways through the game, you can make what is a pretty challenging game seem really, really easy. Which is kind of the point of a lot of my videos. I'm all about sort of dominating this game as much as possible. I know a lot of players have taken to things like, low-level speed run or, starting equipment runs, things like that to make the game more challenging, and that's totally cool. I think that will be fun, but my videos try to focus on other things such as, how to make a game that people struggle with easier, because I still get a lot of messages with people stuck in this game, and, I'm here to help, really, I am. I have a lot of friends who bought this game and wound up never playing it with me because they game over at early game and never came back. And it was really a tragedy. This is the kind of game where you don't want to quit due to the challenge. I mean, you should buy it for the challenge, and then know that once you get it down, you'll feel like just a total boss for being able to handle it. At least that's my take on it, and I've just lost a lot of actually pretty talented, good, and experienced gamers who just couldn't handle the challenge and just backed out, and that's such a waste. This game is too good to give up due to the difficulty. In fact, the difficulty is the charm. Which, by the way, since people have asked on a couple videos and private messages, I think easy mode is the worst idea ever for this game. Now, mind you, it doesn't really make me lose sleep at night that they're putting it in, and I'm not raging over it too much, but honestly, I think that putting easy mode in this game takes something away from it. I think it takes something away from the Soul series in general, and kind of, you know, a lot of people are using the sort of what I call the MW3 argument that Excalizors made. Don't like it, don't play it. Well, don't like easy mode, don't use it. And that's totally reasonable, but I think it's going to take away from the community as a whole. Because, you know, I think that games like this, which almost develop like a cult following, they need to be developed, you know, evaluated in context and stuff like that. Whereas we are one big community, and I think by taking away from the difficulty, we are taking away from sort of something that brings us together. Like, we're Dark Souls players, you know, we have a hard game. Now it's, well, I'm on easy mode, and then we've got to deal with easy mode, you're a noob. Well, I'll play the game how I want. Just, the human ignorance that will be derived directly out of this easy mode thing. It's just ridiculous. So, my advice to all players is, when the easy mode thing comes, don't troll people that admit they're playing on easy mode, and don't troll YouTubers that do easy mode playthroughs. Just leave it alone. You'll actually make things far, far worse by, you know, talking about that stuff, by creating arguments that just have no purpose and no direction. But we are actually getting towards the end of the video finally. We're about to have a game over here because of bad playing. So that happens from time to time. Sometimes in my videos I almost don't release them because, like, I'll suffer a stupid death, and I feel like if I upload it, everyone's going to be like, dude, he sucks at Dark Souls. But I feel like this is the kind of game where if you're not dying from time to time, you're either playing so cautiously that, you know, you're just playing extremely cautiously, or it just kind of boils down to the fact you're editing your videos and hiding all your mistakes. Like PvP videos people upload where they never ever die. No way. Now you're going to see me blow this fight here. That hit me, which scared the crap out of me. I didn't even know it was there. I mean, I heard it, but I didn't know it was going to spit that crap on me. Try to flask. Forgot that the goo reduces your flask effectiveness, and get butchered by the Darkwraith. Really, I wasn't even in a bad situation there. I could have just hit the Darkwraith one more time, killed him, safely healed through that poison crap, went and killed that big blob dude, and everything would have been great. But overconfidence and poor planning got me killed. Hey, my phone just went off. But, you know, it wasn't an issue of reflexes or stuff like that. It was just bad positioning and bad awareness, which will get you, when you talk about the skill of playing the game, that will get you killed. As bad awareness is like the worst thing ever. Not knowing where the enemies are and how many enemies you're about to confront, that will get you killed more than anything else, at least in my opinion. Because as long as you know where everything is and you're in a position to block, you'll be okay. Like, for early players, when all else fails, block. Just have a good shield and block. As long as you're blocking, it usually won't one-shot you. And there will be those areas in the game that punish you for that mentality, because enemies will intentionally have attacks that are just really effective against shields and things like that. But that'll be part of learning, and once you learn those, you know, 10% of attacks that are really effective against shields, then you can just block through everything else. So definitely the early game motto, for me at least, for all the Souls games, is when you don't know what's about to happen to you, block. It used to be mash roll, but that actually got me killed a lot, because rolling requires some timing. Unless you have the Darkwood Grain Ring, then you can just mash. But since I think very few players will be wearing that anymore, you know, I think that we should get used to blocking more. Especially for playing through the single player, where blocking was arguably always your best option, at least in my opinion, and now it's about to get even easier. So this guy isn't particularly dangerous unless he jumps you and spits his goo on you when you're fighting a Darkwraith. But you have to be a fool to let that happen to you, am I right? You can just kind of walk behind him here, and he's got crappy mobility, crappy damage, and just beat on him with the Drake Sword. It's pretty amazing how the Drake Sword can get you through this whole area. I think that's pretty neat. It's not the easiest feat in the game, but I definitely think that a player with maybe an hour of experience down here, even if it's their first time down here, by watching this video and playing cautiously, they could clear this entire area and get boatloads of souls and Titanite chunks and everything else they might need to do everything ever. In the next video installment, I'll try to show everyone how to get some new gear, how to transition into that strength weapon I keep talking about, you know, things like that. Just things you should do, things you should grab, etc., etc. I'm all about kind of showing things that other people may not do, like alternate routes, different items and stuff you can grab. One thing I have noticed in PvP is that the community, I'm not saying I'm really good at Dark Souls, I'm just saying I have knowledge of some of the higher end PvP because I've battled with people and got my butt kicked. The community doesn't understand what weapons are really good, and that's evident in like my videos and the comments people leave. If I get one more person that comes to the Black Knight Great Axe is like OP, I think I'm gonna go like, I'm gonna send spiders through the internet that are going to attack them, Dr. Weird ATHF style, because the Black Knight Great Axe sucks, guys. It just really sucks. I mean, yeah, it's a very damaging weapon. It swings fast. It's got great reach. And it gets parried by a 2-year-old's parrying abilities like my own. I am a terrible player for parrying. I'm not good at accounting for delay. I always try to do it visually, which gets me killed because there's lag. And lots of lag there is. But players that actually know the concept of parrying, and don't get me wrong, I conceptually understand how you should parry, I just don't do it correctly. Players that just do it correctly, no problem. Okay, and here's the last big item you need down here is the very large Ember. This is how you upgrade weapons from like +10 to +15. So if you're going to be buffing your weapon, or you're not going to be using elemental, basically you're going to go +15. So there's where you get the Ember to do it, so you can get an early +15 weapon. In fact, you can really get a +15 weapon before you can get a lightning weapon, if that's your thing. And I might actually try to do this on this character just to show like a full reinforcement path before enter Londo. I think that would be neat. First thing I have to do is find a weapon that I like, because there's only one early game guaranteed Titanite slab, so things to pick up and do on this game. On this, I'm trying to do things I've never done before, things I've always known how to do, just never have done. And if one wants to, they can try to farm these drakes to get early game dragon scales to upgrade like dragon weapons early on, because dragon scales can be hard to come across early game. I think that's crazy. These guys are my first choice for the hardest enemies in the game, because they have really weird pathing, they run away a lot, and they do a lot of damage, and they're just a general pain to fight. So I don't recommend fighting these guys right now. There's no huge advantage to it, but hey man, if that's your thing, go for it. In any case, the only reason you run up here is you can get the red Tearstone Ring, which is necessary in some sort of joke hyper mode builds that I enjoy playing from time to time that I'm not going to elaborate on because we're at the end of this video, but this is where you get the red Tearstone Ring, which I think is another frequently missed item. Now, you can actually slide down there, roll out, and get away fine, or you can jump down and diving attack and go like MacGyver on them and see if it works out, but at this point, I think it's usually just better. You usually have spare homeward bones anyway, so homeward bone out. That's the end of the walkthrough session of this video. I'm going to show my character stats at the end of this video. As you can see, I have a boatload of extra stats left over. I'll be skilling my stats and my character off character, then showing everyone where I stand at the end of this route. I think the results speak for themselves. You'll see the Hollow Soldier waistcloth, which you get just by killing Hollow Soldiers. Most people wind up with about 30 of them on accident. So, pretty early in the game, pretty geared up. We got 67 poise. We're ready to, heck, we're ready. We have a poise breakpoint for PvP at this point, and we're low level. This is a pretty good setup, so recommend it to everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for watching, and let me know if this series was informative. Do we want to see additional installments of this gearing your character stuff? Let me know. Alright guys, thanks for sticking with me through this whole commentary, and I will see everyone next time. And as always, take care.